Perfect. Yeah, maybe we can get started here quickly. And I know once again, good morning, good evening for everyone who's joining us from across the world, and welcome to the fellow panelist John Charlesworth over at Narvar and Perry Nevelka over at Penguin Strategies. Quick introduction to the webinar. This is the first webinar we're doing at Boomerang, so super excited. First ones are always tricky and tough, so hopefully we pull off something that is exciting for everyone. So why are we all here, right? I think as we looked at 2023 and looking at 2024, for many of us, it's month two, or for some of us, is month one into the new fiscal year. And we're all thinking, what do we do to generate more pipeline? What are some new things that we can do to generate pipeline? What are some of the latest and greatest strategies that are working for other companies that we can pick up, use as a starting point to, generate more pipeline? And we at Boomerang, we work with a number of different companies to really understand what's really working for them, right? And hopefully bringing in technology there that can augment the outcomes for those campaigns to generate more high quality pipeline. And quick round of introductions here. Again, my name is Shankar Ganapati. I go by Shanks. I'm one of the founders of this company called Boomerang. And at Boomerang, quick introduction to the company. We help B2B enterprise sales teams generate pipeline through a variety of ways, such as job change tracking, warm referrals, and so on. And again, with me on this panel is John Charlesworth and Perry Nevelka. I'll let John, if you can introduce yourself first, that'll be great.
Sure. My name is John Charlesworth. I'm the director of go-to-market systems at Narvar. We're a B2B software company in the e-commerce space. We have products that facilitate many post-purchase activities such as order tracking, shipping notifications, return coordination for e-commerce retailers, and we have a focus on the enterprise market.
Very cool. Thank you for that, John, and welcome. Perry, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Penguin Strategies. We were a HubSpot solution partner. We've been for 10 years. And we help our customers with their systems and technologies to grow. We do that through a number of ways. One, the main way is we're helping them leverage the technology they already have, the tech stack, obviously with HubSpot, but we also support a number of other applications. Top on our list this year, surprise, surprise, is Boomerang. As we're going into this call, we were just talking about a couple of customers that are going to be using you guys. So excited to share some of that and talk more about it. Go ahead.
Thank you for that, Perry. So let's dive right in. I think we're going to talk about three different campaigns that has worked really well for many of our customers, including John at Narvar. So we'll start off with the first one, which is really about champion tracking, right? And this particular use case has been in the market fairly active for the last 2-3 years, and it's gotten to a maturity where this has become a reliable campaign for many companies. And the idea is fairly simple. When customers of yours change jobs, what does it mean to remarket to them to build more high quality pipeline and revenue? So maybe we can start with you, John. Would love to understand, what was the thesis behind this campaign? What are some of your learnings, and what are some of the best practices that you would recommend for people who are looking to put together, a champion tracking campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. So so as I mentioned before, Narvar is very focused on the enterprise space. So when it comes to other like paid media channels, such as like paid ads, for example, remarketing, that was a strategy that worked pretty well for us within the mid-market space. And in previous lives, I've been in the B2C space where paid media was always a big part of the strategy. But for enterprise B2B, we have been looking at different channels and different ways to get more creative in our demand gen. And so job change tracking and champion tracking is something that we've leaned into more the last, I would say, 6 months. And it's been a very valuable channel for us. And from a paid channel perspective, we've seen higher conversion rates through tracking job changes than we have on leads that we get through other paid media channels. And so Working with Boomerang has been great. Their technology has facilitated, I think, the upfront technical aspect of identifying the job change and then segmenting the job change from both the perspective of target market as well as contact role. So previous champion or economic buyer. We use MedPick as our sales process. So really segmenting the job changes into both, ICP match as well as that like buyer role or contact role. So with that, we're able to take these job changes that they identify once a month. And then my perspective from GTM systems, we've implemented some automation to make the user experience of handing these leads off to our sales team and then tracking the ROI pretty efficient. But overall, it's just been a great channel for us, especially from B2B enterprise demand gen, because these are essentially warm leads at the end of the day and people who are already familiar with our products. And, frankly, they're leads that the sales team is more excited to get and work.
Super, super cool. Thanks, John. And Perry, I know you work on a number of different campaigns, to support your customers. What gets you excited about this particular campaign?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a little bit of what John said. It's interesting that we didn't really, discuss this before, but we're seeing very similar. We do have customers that sell to the mid-market and to the enterprise space, and getting, there's always a gap between sales and marketing. We're always working on that. It's one of the things we do to help our customers make the systems align, KPIs align. But the age-old use paid media, social media, download a white paper or whatever, to generate leads, and then expect sales to pick that up and use their valuable time, and it is valuable time to chase that. That's not enough intent. And there's lots of things that we help with. We have scoring and all kinds of other things, ways to find out who's more. But this is something that we've been talking about for about 6 months before, over the last year, about how to help customers re-engage with either, we'll talk about close loss, but also with existing customers that have moved jobs. We see that at our company as well. If we did a great job for a customer and they move to a new job, if there's a good chance they'll call you up. But when you scale that out, you can't always expect them to remember you. You have to sometimes need a little help in reminding them. So I think that's clear. I think it'd be good if we can also dig into a little bit more about the details of how we build out those workflows that you talked about, John. And sometimes you want to just nurture them, but sometimes you want to build out maybe more sequences and work with warm them up a little bit more aggressively, using maybe an SDR team. I'm not sure if that's what you do, John, but we have customers that do. They kind of lean to either side. They're like, no, we don't want to reach out. We don't want to bother them actively, but we will, nurture them. But others will create sequences and call sequences and reach out to them on LinkedIn and do a whole bunch of other things. So love to hear what you think about that, John, what you guys are doing.
Yeah, 100%. So I also noticed there was a good question that just got posted about balancing automation versus personalization when it comes to follow up. So I can speak to how we kind of tackle both of those things. So from the personalization angle, and Perry, you mentioned this too, we've got different outreach sequences that correspond to the segmentation I was talking about before. So we've got, the ICP match, which we have 2 different categories for. It's either a full ICP match or a partial. We have the buyer role or the contact role, which for us right now, it's primarily just champion or other. And then we have job changes into either prospect accounts or customer accounts. So across those 3 different dimensions, we have different outreach sequences with tailored messaging. So that's a little bit of the personalization aspect. We've got these outreach sequences tailored across those 3 dimensions. So then from an automation perspective, when we realize that there's a job change into a customer account, we send those to our sales and our CSM teams. So the CSM owner of the account and the sales owner they both get a notification about the job change, and we let them decide how they want to handle the follow-up, being that it's at a customer account, and every customer relationship could be a little unique. For job changes into prospect accounts, those we send directly to the BDR team. And so when we send the BDR team the alert of the job change, we pair it up with exactly what recommended sequence they should use to enroll the prospect into, to really make the user experience great, make it like very much a low lift for them and really easy for them to understand. Okay, here's the job change. Here's the sequence that I need to use. Is it a champion? Is it not? What's their ICP? So really making, from an automation perspective, it a low lift for the BDR team to understand what next steps to take. The last thing that I'll mention, from the standpoint of like specifically the job changes that fall within that champion category, is we use a gifting platform. The one that we use is called Brilliant, and the first step of the sequence sends the person a gift congratulating them on the job change. So there's obviously a cost that's associated to that too. So we're only using it with the champion job changes. But incorporating the gifting platform into the automation has been a valuable way to, to really like drive engagement and just increase the interest in our response rate.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think especially with decision makers and champions who purchased from you in the past, I think just being grateful to them that they've done business, given you the opportunity to service, I think absolutely works a lot. And we've seen that work. The gifting approach shows your true intention, like you're genuinely happy for them, and it absolutely works out pretty well. Cool. So, just moving on to the next question here, next campaign here, if I may, right? And I think this is also connected to, champion job change tracking, which is, how do we think about win back campaigns? And again, obviously, there are multiple ways to, slice this. We can look at, hey, do we reach out to close loss deals from a year ago or 2 years ago? How do we reach out to these prospects who evaluated us, familiar with us at their new company? Or what else we could do with them. Again, maybe Perry, we can start with you. How have you seen win back campaigns work, and what are some of your ideas that from your perspective?
Yeah, a lot of times this is low-hanging fruit when we work with customers, because salespeople, they close lost the deal, it's gone. It's out of there. They're on to the next thing. But as a company, close lost is actually a really good learning point. Besides the fact you can learn why did you lose and all that, but it's that if they got to the close lost, it should be that they were a great fit. They had budget, whatever system you're using, they ticked all the boxes, and then they went with a competitor. If that's the case, and when we're talking about a product sale, that means it's a great starting point for a conversation. Especially if it's a SaaS product, there's usually a time limit on it, right? They sign a 12-month contract, 24-month. You don't always know 100%, but if they were going to sign with you a 12-month, chances are that's what they did. If they did 24, 36. And then we can build out a strategy of, okay, what do we do next? Do we reach out 2 months before the renewal, 3 months? Do we check in halfway through? Do we check in a year? Do we check in 6 months? How do we nurture them to best do this? And it's unique. It has to be for each customer that needs to be built up. But there's a lot of thought that can be put into that. And if you haven't done it until now, then you have a gold mine, because you can go back and look at all the closed loss that you've over the last X amount of years and start campaigns just around that. And a lot of times that's low-hanging fruit. And in 2024, coming out of most companies had a really rough year last year from a sales perspective, and talking across most technology companies and most companies in general, the macro situation was tough. Obviously, there's companies that did well, but and 2024 is not, maybe it's a little bit better, but we need to find these strategies and find the low-hanging fruits, and they're in our databases. Our owned data is a gold mine that I don't think is being leveraged. And this is another great example. I think the champion example is great. Is if if there's a, if you just go with these two examples, and I think there's going to be another one right after this, they're less expensive than going after paid media and competing with the whole world over keywords that are super expensive, and there's a lot of value here.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, I think one of the things that in the world of sales, and when I look at my own BDR team, the thing that we are typically optimizing is for personalization, right? But I think there is another layer on top of that, which is relevance. Like, and relevance not just comes from their need that you can determine from public source, but also comes from any past engagement from them showing that they're evaluated the solution. So familiarity and relevance can drive a lot better personalization, and we in our own outbound, and when we see it across our customers as well, when we're able to bring in familiarity and relevance in our personalization, it just drives much higher conversion into pipeline and revenue. And again,
Yeah.
John, yeah, over to you. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I beat you to the gun there. The couple of things I was going to layer on from a data hygiene standpoint would be to ensure that you're requiring that sales enters in a reason why they're close losing a deal, why they're moving a deal to dead. Closing a deal should require a reason, and that reason should correlate with the messaging for any win-back campaign. So just making sure that you're requiring a reason, number one, and then number two, requiring that there's at least one, ideally multiple contact roles that your sales team is adding to these opportunities, so that who those players were in the deal that are most valuable to reach out to. Because I'm sure within the account at your CRM, you might have maybe hundreds of contacts that maybe they aren't all relevant to the deal. So leveraging opportunity contact roles is really important, and you can actually require that there's a contact role added to move a deal into a certain stage. For example, you could have a validation role around that. So reasons for closing a deal, opportunity contact roles, those are both things that are going to help facilitate any win-back campaign.
Totally. Hey, if you can flip this for a second, right? What are some of the practical challenges when it comes to implementing a win-back campaign? Like, what are some things we should keep in mind as potential pitfalls?
Yeah, I think to drill into what John said is really important. I think I made it sound a little simpler than it probably is. If a company hasn't been collecting deal lost reasons, then it makes it a little bit more difficult. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's worth digging into the data. But I think it's the data hygiene problem, right? If they just open deals and close them and there's nobody attached to them, then there's a lot of work that needs to go down. So I think that there's a challenge around that, and getting the right amount of context. Another thing, just to your point, is you can go, you don't want to burden salespeople too much, because they find ways around it if you do. And so but on the one hand, you want them to give as much detail. So if it's possible to make something of that a drop down, so that it's then it can trigger the right next steps, then that's really a helpful tip.
Yeah, and then I think another common challenge is just making sure that you can measure the ROI of the campaign. And there's lots of different ways to do it, whether you're, just looking at meetings booked within a tool like Outreach, or whether you're, adding all of the contacts to a campaign in Salesforce and using campaign attribution against the opportunity. But whatever it is, it's just important to make sure that you have a strategy and that you're able to measure the success of the win-back campaign. And that can be a common challenge too, but definitely worth spending the time to make sure that you have a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very cool. Super discussion here. Moving on to the third campaign here, which is about referrals. And again, as with any word like referral, it's a very broad term. It can mean a lot of different people. And again, the way we define referrals is that how do you work with people who are your advocates or your champions to get in front of other relevant buyers? And again, there's no better source of pipeline than your customers and your partners, right? And instead of just cold calling someone or cold emailing someone, if you can get someone to refer you to the right people, chances are you will convert opportunities and customers much faster. Uh, so again, maybe John would love to understand from your perspective, and again, especially because you're selling into a vertical SaaS solution. How do you sort of look at referrals, and what are you doing currently, to get more referrals?
Yeah, no, totally. So we've really leaned heavily the last year into referral platforms like G2 and Capterra, trying to increase the number of reviews that we have on those platforms. So kind of more of an indirect way to get kind of referrals out there on the web for people to find. And the way that we've done that is by pairing up a campaign to drive referrals with the NPS survey platform that we use. We actually used a survey platform called Delighted. It's a Qualtrics product. It's pretty, it's relatively inexpensive out there for people that are looking for a survey platform. And what we do is when we get a promoter score through Delighted, which is a 9 or 10 on the NPS scale, we auto-enroll the person into a marketing drip promoting reviews on G2 and Capterra. And it's also another campaign that we use our gifting platform, Brilliant. So the email drip campaign is offering a gift in exchange for leaving us a review on G2 or Capterra. And we've been able to drive like 20x the number of reviews that we've had on each of those platforms over the last year than we had before. And so, that's really important just to make sure that when people are researching our product, because independent research is obviously a really big piece of the buyer's journey in today's world. And, buyers are going to self-serve when they do that research. And they're, of course, going to land on those review sites. And it was really important for us that we have a presence. And so driving, a campaign of this sort paired up with promoters that leave us high NPS scores was a really great way for us to increase the number of reviews that we have across those platforms, which has helped us from a referral standpoint.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, I think there's also the broader perspective there, John. Again, if you can double click on that, which is a lot of times in the case of Narvar, like there are people who are not necessarily buyers but are power users of your product, right? And even they change jobs. When they change jobs, they may not be in buying roles. Have you seen, what has worked for Narvar and for your team in terms of working with them to get to the right people at the new company? Anything around more direct referrals as well? Have you tried them?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any like very creative suggestions other than the obvious, but yeah, with like product champions are definitely a good base to reach out to get introductions to to other people in their network across companies. I think we haven't really operationalized that. It's probably an area that we can look to improve throughout the rest of the year. But I agree, definitely, that's a valuable subset of users to try and to try and capture referrals from as well.
I think there's
Absolutely.
two other aspects that you might think about it. And again, I don't know how relevant to Narvar is, but one thing is, especially if you're selling into enterprises, usually a lot of times you're getting a foot in the door, right? If you're Salesforce, maybe you're getting their whole organization, but a lot of times you're selling solutions, and you get a foot in the door by selling to a department, or part of the business or a subsidiary or whatever it might be. And now you want to land and expand, and that's where also referral, like it's another way to think about referrals, right? And I think that is another something that we've seen how to have those champions within there to see how we can get them to refer you into other departments. Not always is it easy to get people to refer to other companies because they're not always socializing with other. It depends on your ICP. Some do and some don't. Especially if you're selling into engineers or developers, then there is a really good opportunity to with customers that sell to developers. Developers are on all kinds of platforms, and you can leverage that, and we can simple, so that's because I've seen that the G2 and those types of campaigns are just incredibly successful, and I agree. I've seen those. One of the things we've been testing out over the last year is some new tools about how to leverage really happy customers to be references, not just referral, like not just putting a positive review, but be open to talking to other people for you. And then a gifting platform, one of the ones we're playing with last year is called D2. You can check them out. They're basically a platform where happy customers can store their comments, their videos, their referrals, and they can also say they're open to talking to other customers or potential customers. And of course, everything they do, there's incentives there, and they're built into the system, gift cards or whatever it might be. But again, they make it more accessible, easier, right? Get a customer that says, okay, I think you sound interesting. You gave a great presentation. I want to talk to another customer. That it's one thing to go into G2 and read what people are writing, but it's another thing to talk to somebody and really understand. Because even if it's a happy customer, still when you talk to them, you may realize they're not a good fit for you because of X, Y, or Z. So that's another area that that we've been playing and using technology to facilitate that and make it more automated. I think is great, and there's a lot of AI built into that where for example, creating a quick case study is a lot of work when basically you're answering the same 5 to 10 questions, and then AI can kind of build all the rest of the content. So there's lots of different things that I could share, but those are some of the things that I wanted to share. So go ahead.
Yeah. No, very cool. Absolutely. I think again, referrals is not an easy topic, but I think once we master referrals, I think there is a whole world of opportunities out there. Very cool. So moving on to the next section here, and maybe this question maybe is for you, John, and then a period for you as well, right? I think which is, some of the things that we hear from companies is that our data is not clean. There's no way we can do champion tracking, right? And people don't update opportunity contact roles, and or even if they do, it is not accurate. And this is the story of every company, right? Whether you're small or large doesn't matter. How have you handled these challenges, at a tactical level, right? Which is like, here are a few things to keep in mind. Like, how you handle these challenges?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I mean, alignment is important across, across sales, across marketing, and, data hygiene is really important. And if you don't have great data hygiene, it definitely inhibits the ability to run more targeted, personalized campaigns. And so I think like from an operations standpoint, having validation rules on your opportunity that require certain data in certain situations is really important, such as requiring a contact role before an opportunity can progress to a certain stage. So making sure that you're kind of requiring that data capture is important. And then just making sure you have ideally like a good methodology for your sales team to follow. We use MEDPIC internally. And so we have a lot of training around MEDPIC, and a part of that is making sure that we're capturing the right buyer roles on our opportunities. So, that has really helped from a data hygiene standpoint too. So the enablement is really important. The kind of operational rules you can put in place to capture certain data is important. And then we also use an enrichment provider too. So when it comes to like making sure that we have the right job titles and job levels on contacts, that also helps, making sure that we know who's in our ICP and who isn't. So I think a combination of all of those things, but it's definitely been a challenge at every company that I've been to, but those are some of the ways that I think we've helped get around it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Of course.
I love that. And Perry, again, you've seen a lot more CRMs than many of us. What are you seeing, when it comes to data?
I think if I spoke to 100 companies that we work with, I think we get that 100 companies would say that their data hygiene is not perfect, and I think there is it's perfect only on before you put in the first contact, and then it's only a matter of a month or two until whatever the percentage is, right? There's 5%, 10% of your data is always whether it's job changes or their email changes or whatever it is. So you have to accept that, and I think that you have to fight the good fight. And John is dead on. Like that's ABC, right? That's the first thing we want to go in is we want to understand the process, make sure that the process is done, is defined and there's agreement. A lot of times I feel like we come in as peacemakers because as external consultants, we're not biased, right? So we don't care about sales or marketing. We're not involved in their politics, but we can definitely call BS when we see it. So, we want to build up that process with them and advise and help them execute so that limit and minimize the data hygiene problems. And then of course the data enrichment is a great augmenter. Tools like Boomerang and other things that can keep up with all the job changes and things like that. Those are all kinds of tools that can help us get it better. But you need to assume that there's especially contacts that aren't being worked on, or just are getting old or need to be fixed. So
Yeah, totally. And again, one of our learnings when I look at, we face this question every time we onboard a new customer, right? And hey, there are tens of contacts for every customer account. Hey, how do we pick what we want to pick, right? And the way we look at this is that I think it starts with defining your buyer personas. It starts with saying, hey, there could be tens, if not hundreds of contacts in my every account that we are wanting to track. But then how do you prioritize your tier one personas, your tier two personas? And then more often than not, your tier one personas are people that are familiar with you, right? That your tier one personas are people that have either purchased from you or are using your product, right? So even when the opportunity contact role, account contact role doesn't exist, it almost always, is a direct overlap with your tier one, tier two personas, right? And again, it goes back to what Johnny was saying, right? Like keeping that enrichment there, like knowing the titles, making sure that it's not just system knowing the titles, about you knowing the titles that you want to go after other new jobs. So totally. Um, and another interesting question that obviously we get asked quite a lot is how do we select the right vendor, especially when it comes to champion tracking? There are quite a few players in this category, right? And obviously there's a sales spiel that anyone would give, but then as a buyer, what are some of the key considerations that you had in mind in terms of evaluating a solution for champion tracking?
Yeah, so a few different things. I think honestly, number one, we were looking for a good team that we could work with. And I think we found that in Boomerang. Just what I've been impressed with is like how much they're invested in this product and how open they are to new ideas. So that's been really, great for us being able to just have that working relationship and having that level of customer support. That's really important in any tech stack product that we purchase, and we felt like we found that in Boomerang. The other thing is making sure that we're identifying job changes quickly. I think a lot of tools out there might identify job changes around once a quarter. Boomerang has been able to do that once a month, so that was very important to us as well. And then one of my favorite aspects of the product is the account matching that they have. So when we identify a job change, not only can Boomerang help us segment the job change based on the persona and the contact role, but they do account matching. So we know we can create the contact under the right account, which triggers our automation to alert the appropriate account owner and the appropriate CSM without having to rely on like a BDR to convert the lead, for example. We know what account they belong to, if it's a customer, if it's a prospect, and with a high level of confidence and accuracy, we know who the right person should be to get the notification. And so that account match is really important. That's one of my favorite parts of the product.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, I think it's what at least we also learned, John, working with you. It's a complex problem because there are so many nuances with respect to account matching that every company is unique. Lot to learn there. And Perry, obviously you work with several companies and helping them generate pipeline and run campaigns, right? And what would you recommend to your customers? Hey, here are things that you should be looking for as you look at a new vendor.
yeah, so first of all, I think that it's important to say this is as a vendor ourselves, meaning certainly we're a service provider. we get approached, or I get approached by hundreds of tools that every year. I'm sure, John, you get cold approached as well by time. And of course, there's so much opportunity. There's so many tools. There's so many technologies. Really important is that ROI, ability to prove ROI, because customers are overloaded. Their tech stacks are too big as it is, and they just don't have room or capacity to look at anything new unless it really can help them with the bottom line, something that can help them personalize a little bit better, or they can't hear the words AI anymore. It's like it's overused. Like they don't care. All they want to know is how is it going to make them look better in front of their bosses. How's it going to, if it's somewhere more senior, how's it going to help their bottom line? So this is really important, and I think that when one of the reasons that this tool and the one I mentioned earlier, and there's other tools obviously that we will be willing to put effort and help customers with, is really those types of tools, and this is really really important. I don't want to go, the things that you said, John, are exactly the same reasons that I got excited about this, and have already started implementing it with a number of our customers. And the process is so well done, right? The proof of concept, the ability to show value right away, right out of the gate, the integration points. It's also the ability, because like we've looked at a couple of other tools that require a lot of download and move and things like this. These are really important, and the fact that the team understands the space. A lot of times they're like the technology works, but they don't get what we're trying to do, and they understand what an ICP is, and also there's a lot of really important pieces here when it comes to with tools, especially with young companies that are coming out, and we there's a trust element of it.
Very cool. Totally. No, thanks for those kind words, Perry and John, both of you. Again, means a lot coming from you. So again, moving on, I know we've covered a lot of ground here. I think good segue for us to open up to questions. There are a few good questions that have been emailed over prior to the call from some of the participants, so we'll go over them. But again, if there are other questions from any of the attendees, again, would love to answer them. I see a question here. When it comes to referrals, what do you expect in a request if someone were to reach out to introduce someone? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, anyone? I know Perry, John, anyone wants to take this?
Sure, I can take a quick stab at it. I mean, I think it depends on the company. I think when we get introduced to somebody, we would want to capture the same sorts of information that we might have on a demo request form to qualify a deal or make sure that it gets routed to the right person. So the same types of information that you would collect to qualify a deal, I think is correct. Like for us, we would want to know what industry the e-commerce retailer is in, what their order volume is in, or what their order volume is, excuse me, what their return volume is. So just the standard things to qualify a deal, I think is my perspective on it. Perry, you might have other thoughts.
Yeah, it's along those lines. When we get a request for referral, or someone wants to refer business to us, it's really important to understand, because you have what you're good at as a company, as a service, as a tool, and when it's not a good fit, and it's really important to know the difference, so that you don't your referral, the referrer is also seen in the right light, so that you don't ruin that, don't burn that bridge. So it's almost as important to know when to say no as well as when to say yes. So it's really important to understand for us, if it's not in the right industry, if it's like, for example, we don't deal with B2C, so there's a lot of things like that we need to take a look at.
Yeah, totally. And again, from our own learning, what we've seen is that a significant part of our pipeline comes from our customers and partner referrals, right? And I think what we've sort of learned through looking at the data is that it's easy to go look at LinkedIn and say, hey, John here is connected to a couple of thousand people, right? But then today LinkedIn also has become a system where there's a lot of invitations, a lot of acceptance of invitations. And what we've really optimized for is things around, hey, are there work overlaps between people that we're asking to be referred to and our customers? Is a customer actually a champion? And it could be all the way from a senior leadership customer, or to an SDR as well. And anyone can make a referral, but then what's important is to figure out, hey, are they able to really make, first of all, are they a champion? Two, do they know that person that you want to be referred to, right? And whenever we optimize for both of this, we've seen referrals work really well. uh, and again, it's interesting, it's a whole new problem to figure out how to do this more scalably, right? Because you got thousands of customers, and then each customer have tens of high value contacts, and how do you know who can refer you to a target account or target buyer, right? So totally, yeah, I think this is a interesting problem space altogether. uh, Perfect. So just maybe a couple other questions. I'm just going to pick up from the emails that I received, prior to this call, right? Yeah. So one of the questions is about how aggressive, do we get from, do we get about going behind, champion job changes? It's kind of interesting because, uh, you always want to be the first in front of your past time in a new job. At the same time, your champion also has things to figure out in the first few months, right? And we've seen cases where people buy their most important technology in the first 3 months. We also seen people take the first 3-4 months to figure out what is it they want to do. So how do you sort of think about the threshold of in terms of how aggressively you want to follow up with your champions after they change jobs?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a question our BDR team asked us when we first implemented Boomerang too. They were a little weary about reaching out to people, right away, because it takes a little time to get acclimated to your new role. So definitely understand the question. I think from my perspective, it's important to be first. Part of our champion campaign is a gift. And so I think, just making sure that your first message might allude to the fact that, hey, I know you're recently in this role. Let me know if there's a better time to reach out, but I wanted to provide you with this gift congratulating you on, XYZ. So I think like it is important to be first, to make that impression. But I think just being conscious in your messaging about the fact that you are reaching out pretty quickly is important. And you can always tag that contact as somebody that you want to re-enroll in a couple of months or reach back out to. And then there's going to be other cases where maybe the person is more receptive to a conversation right away. Maybe they're very familiar with your product in their past role and they're more comfortable taking that call. So I don't think you want to lose out on the opportunity of trying to be aggressive and reach out first. I just think you need to be conscious of that fact in some cases.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we can take maybe one more question here before we call this a wrap, and maybe this one over to you for Perry, right? Again, you deal with a lot of automation, you deal with a lot of scalable automation, if I may, right? And one question I see on the chat here is, what is why does this need automation, right? Like, why can't this be done manually? And again, it's absolutely a great question, right? Like, because information is probably available out there, and people can go track this manually, but why does it not need automation?
Yeah, that was one time when I spoke to a customer about this. They're like, well, it's on LinkedIn, right? You just go to the Grow tab. That actually they just made it a little bit easier, or you have like a navigator. But first of all, it's in tune to your network and not your customer base. And that's okay if you have 50 customers, you have 60 customers, you have 100 customers. It's not okay, but let's just say it's manageable. But when you've got when you've got 1,000 customers, or you're dealing with enterprises where every customer might have multiple champions, so even if you had 100 customers, now you have 1,000 people you got to track. And not to mention, if a lot of customers that we work with that have thousands of customers, then you're really there's no way to scale it manually. I mean, there is, but you need a lot of people, and then the ROI would really be hard to track. This way, we're really that's where the automation and finding the way to keep the right balance between automation, personalization, and personal touch. And I love what John shared about the gift, about some of them going through a BDR and having a warmer outreach. You need to find the mix. I don't think there's one answer fits all. Because if you're dealing with like big ticket items, and it sounds like that's what you're dealing with, John, then your ROI calculation allows you to invest more money in each more lead. But if you're dealing with a low ticket item, like you're a SaaS company, I don't know, let's say you're Monday.com, right? And you have thousands and thousands of customers, you could use this. This could be a huge improvement on the way that whatever you're doing right now. But they're not going to be able to gift their ROI, especially if they're selling to small businesses, whereas I don't know, whatever it's depending on the pricing, it's like a $200 item or $300, and it needs to be done in a more automated fashion. And even a BDR isn't going to reach out to these people. It's got to be totally automated. So you got to find the right mix from small business to enterprise. But absolutely needs to be automated if you want to do this. If you don't want to do this, that's also fine.
Yeah, totally. I know, again, one of the things that we notice is that you want to the word automation is such a broad word, and it's used in so many different ways, right? When it comes to job change tracking or champion tracking, there are two important problems. One is decision making, right? Like, do you want to make a decision on you want to make a decision every single time a champion changes jobs on what to do with that, or do you want to do that in a more consistent framework where you're managing things more centrally? And the moment you have even 100 customers, you're going to have thousands of contacts that are worth tracking. And then the decision on, hey, what do we really do when people change jobs, right? And your A players are going to be killing it because they know exactly what to do, but your B players and C players need help. And that is what technology can play a role. The moment you can go learn from A players and what they're doing, and use technology to automate that process across B and C players. And that's really the value of technology, right? Where you can save the 30 minutes per week, or 30 minutes every other week, and more importantly, make sure things get done, right? And you don't want to leave things to chance. And we've seen customers of ours previously train salespeople on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Hey, let's go look at this. And what we notice is that they may do it for the first 1 or 2 weeks, and then there are new hires come in, people leave, and then over the next few weeks, not even months, the adoption just tapers down. So it's interesting problem statement for sure. I know we are coming up on time here. Thank you so much, John and Perry. Super informative discussion. I came into this webinar with a certain perspective on how to cover this, and I think I'm going to go back to this recording and take a bunch of notes. And we had a lot of people join us to the webinars. So thank you for all the attendees as well. Pleasure you could take the time out. And we intend to do this every month or so. So looking forward to staying connected and learning from all of you as we go through the process. And once again, thank you so much, John and Perry, for taking out the time.
Thank you.
See you both. Have a good one.
Bye.